The massive space station floated like a crystal cathedral in the darkness of space. Its towers stretched for miles in every direction, gleaming with the light of distant stars. This was the heart of galactic power, the council station where 12 alien species met to decide the fate of billions. Ambassador Zethkri stood at the center of the great chamber, his crystalline body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. Around him sat the representatives of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, the bird-like Avari perched on their floating platforms. The massive rock-skinned Garathi shifted in their reinforced chairs. The ethereal luminari floated as beings of pure energy contained in shimmering fields. But today, all eyes were on the humans. Sarah Chen sat quietly at the human delegation table, her dark hair pulled back in a simple style. She wore the standard diplomatic uniform of Earth, navy blue with silver trim. Compared to the exotic forms around her, she looked almost plain. That was exactly what the Council expected from humanity's newest members. Zethkri activated the holographic display that dominated the chamber. Images filled the air, star maps, colony ships, industrial facilities, all bearing the insignia of Earth. Honored Council members, Zethkri's voice resonated through translation devices that made his crystal song understandable to all species. We gather today to address a growing threat to galactic stability. The humans. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Draconic Assembly's Admiral Korth leaned forward, his scaled face twisted in a sneer. The insectoid hive queen clicked her mandibles in what might have been agreement. Even the usually peaceful botanical collective swayed their flower heads in concern. For 50 years we have welcomed humanity into our community, Zethkri continued. We shared our knowledge, our trade routes, our culture. We believed them to be a young species that would learn to follow galactic law and custom. The hologram shifted to show a list of charges. Sarah Chen read them silently, her face showing no emotion. Instead, they have violated 17 separate colonization treaties. They have established settlements in disputed systems without council approval. They have reverse-engineered our technology without permission. And most disturbing of all, the hologram changed to show technical schematics that made several council members gasp. They have developed weapons that threaten the very fabric of space itself. The weapon designs rotated slowly in the air. They called them quantum cascade torpedoes. According to the data, a single torpedo could trigger a chain reaction that would destabilize an entire star system. The theoretical yield was beyond anything the Council had ever imagined. How did they obtain this technology? Demanded Admiral Korth. These designs are beyond what any species should achieve in mere decades. That is precisely the problem, Zethkri replied. Humanity's rate of advancement is unprecedented, dangerous. They learn too quickly, adapt too fast, and take risks that no responsible species would consider. The luminary representative spoke in chimes of light that translated as, "What do you propose we do about this situation?" Zethkri's form brightened with satisfaction. The Council has prepared an ultimatum. He gestured to a sealed container that floated toward Sarah Chen. The terms are non-negotiable. Sarah took the container but did not open it. She waited. Humanity will immediately cease all expansion beyond your current territories. You will surrender all advanced weapons to Council oversight. You will submit all future research and development to Council approval before implementation. You will pay reparations for your violations, an amount equal to Earth's total economic output for the next 100 years. The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the station's system seemed to quiet. You have 72 hours to provide your answer, Zethkri announced. Failure to comply will result in complete economic embargo. All trade with human worlds will cease. All access to Council space will be denied. If necessary, military action will be taken to enforce compliance. Admiral Korth's teeth showed in what might have been a smile. My fleets are already in position around key human systems. Compliance or conquest, the choice is yours. Sarah Chen stood slowly. Around her, the most powerful beings in the galaxy watched and waited for the human response. They expected pleading. They expected desperate negotiation. They expected submission. Instead, she simply said, "I will convey your message to Earth." "Do you not wish to discuss terms?" asked the Botanical Collective's speaker. "Perhaps we can reach some accommodation." "The terms appear quite clear," Sarah replied, "as does the timeline. If there is nothing else, I should return to prepare my response." Zethkri's form dimmed slightly. The human's calm reaction was not what he had expected. You understand the seriousness of this situation? The consequences of refusal? Sarah looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes or eye equivalents of each council member. I understand perfectly. You are asking humanity to surrender our independence, our security, and our future. You are demanding we become a vassal, state under council rule. We are asking you to become responsible members of galactic society, corrected the Hive Queen. I see. Sarah placed the sealed ultimatum in her diplomatic pouch. Then I suppose there is nothing more to discuss until I have Earth's official response. She walked toward the exit with measured steps. The council members watched her go, some with satisfaction, others with unease. The humans seemed too calm, too controlled for someone whose species had just been threatened with extinction. Do you think they will comply? Asked one of the Avari representatives after Sarah had left. They have no choice, Admiral Korth declared. Their military is primitive compared to ours. Their economy depends on council trade. They are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. But Zethakri was not so certain. He had studied humans extensively during their 50 years in galactic society. They were unpredictable in ways that other species were not. They had a disturbing tendency to find solutions where none should exist. Perhaps we should have offered more. Reasonable terms, suggested the luminary. Representative, the terms are perfectly reasonable for a species that has repeatedly violated galactic law. Zethakri replied firmly. They must learn their place in the galactic order. As the council session ended, the representatives dispersed to their quarters or transport ships. Most were satisfied that the human problem would soon be resolved. A few harbored doubts but kept them to themselves. None of them noticed the small, barely detectable sensor that had been recording everything from a position near the chamber's ceiling. It had been there for months, camouflaged as part of the station's own systems. Its data was already being transmitted to destinations throughout human space. Aboard her diplomatic ship, Sarah Chen sat in her private cabin and opened the sealed ultimatum. She read through the demands carefully, making mental notes. Then she activated her secure communications array. Priority 1 message to Geneva, she told her communications officer. Tell them the council has made their move. Send them everything we recorded today. Should I also transmit the ultimatum terms, Ambassador? Sarah looked out at the stars through her cabin's porthole. Somewhere out there, her people were making decisions that would determine humanity's fate. She had complete confidence in their choice. Send it all, she said, and tell them to prepare the response we discussed. The council is about to learn something new about humanity. The message raced across space through quantum entanglement communicators, a technology humanity had developed in secret. Far beyond anything the council knew they possessed, it would reach Earth in minutes rather than the days required by standard council communication methods. The ultimatum was about to receive its answer. And the galaxy would never be the same. The emergency meeting began before dawn in Geneva. The World Defense Council chamber was buried 300 meters beneath the Swiss mountains, protected by shields that could stop a nuclear blast. Today, it might need to stop something much worse. President Elena Martinez sat at the head of the circular table, her face grim in the blue light of the holographic displays. Around her were the most powerful people on Earth. General Harrison commanded humanity's Space Force. Director Nakamura led the Xenological Research Division. Admiral Chen, Sarah's sister, controlled the Deep Space Fleet. Each of them had received the same urgent message from the council station. Let's review what we know, Martinez said, activating the central display. The Galactic Council has given us 72 hours to surrender our independence or face total war. The ultimatum appeared in the air, its terms stark and brutal. Stop all expansion, surrender all weapons, submit to council oversight, pay tribute for a century. It's slavery, General Harrison said bluntly. They want us to become their pets. Can we afford to refuse? Asked Finance Minister Okafor. Our economy depends on council trade. Our colonies need their resources. Actually, they don't, Director Nakamura replied quietly. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. May I show you something the council doesn't know about? She activated her personal display. The hologram shifted to show a map of human space, but not the map the council had seen. This one showed dozens of additional star systems marked in red. These are our real territories, Nakamura explained. The council thinks we have colonies in 37 systems. The actual number is 114. Shocked silence filled the room. "How is that possible?" Martinez demanded. "We've been very careful," Admiral Chen answered. "Every official colony has been reported and registered with the Council. But for every official colony, we've established 3 unofficial ones in systems the Council considers empty or worthless." She highlighted several systems on the map. These stars were marked as having no useful planets. The Council was wrong. We found habitable worlds, mineral deposits, and research sites. We've been developing them in complete secrecy for 20 years. What about supplies? Transport? You can't hide entire fleets of colony ships. "We don't use colony ships," General Harrison said with a slight smile. "We use something much better." The display changed again, showing technical specifications that made the politicians gasp. The ships looked nothing like the bulky transports other species used. They were sleek, angular, and covered with strange geometric patterns. "Stealth technology," Harrison explained. "Our ships can't be detected by Council sensors. We've been moving people and supplies right past their monitoring stations for decades." Minister Okafor leaned forward. "You're telling me we've been conducting the largest secret expansion in galactic history?" "That's exactly what we're telling you," Nakamura confirmed. "But that's not even our biggest secret." She looked around the table, making sure she had everyone's attention. 3 months ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something approaching from outside the galaxy. The signals are consistent with artificial constructs, ships, but bigger than anything we've ever seen. A new hologram appeared, showing sensor readings and trajectory calculations. The numbers were staggering. "The fleet is massive," Nakamura continued. "Thousands of ships, some larger than entire cities. They're coming from the direction of the Andromeda Galaxy, but the energy signatures suggest they're from much farther away. They'll reach the edge of our galaxy in approximately 50 years. Could it be peaceful contact?" Martinez asked hopefully. "Unlikely." Nakamura's expression was dark. "We've been analyzing the approach pattern and comparing it to historical data. This matches 3 previous incidents over the last 2 million years. Each time a galactic civilization at its peak suddenly vanished, leaving only dead worlds and archaeological ruins. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. You're saying these are the ones who destroyed previous galactic civilizations? General Harrison asked. That's our conclusion. They arrive, harvest everything of value, biological and technological, then move on. The pattern is always the same. Total consumption. Admiral Chen activated her own display. This is why we've been building our real military capabilities in secret. Not to fight the Council, but to prepare for this. The hologram showed shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, weapons testing on remote moons, and fleets of warships unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The quantum cascade torpedoes were just the beginning. We've been reverse engineering every piece of Council technology we could get our hands on, Chen explained. Then we improved it. Our weapons are more powerful, our ships are faster, and our defenses are stronger than anything currently in service. The Council has no idea, Harrison added. They still think we're using primitive chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. They've never seen what we're really capable of. President Martinez stared at the displays surrounding her. Her people had been playing a game so complex and long-term that even she hadn't known the full scope. What are you recommending? We reject their ultimatum completely, Nakamura said firmly. More than that, we tell them about the approaching threat and demand they work with us to prepare joint defenses. They'll never believe us, Minister Okafor protested. They'll think it's a desperate lie. Then we show them proof, Admiral Chen replied. We reveal our monitoring stations and share our data. We let them see that we've been watching the galaxy far more carefully than they have. And if they still refuse to listen? Martinez asked. General Harrison's expression was grim but determined. Then we prepare to fight both wars. Against the Council now and against the real enemy later. Humanity didn't survive ice ages and world wars by backing down from impossible odds. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Humanity had faced extinction before and always chosen to fight rather than surrender. This time would be no different. As the meeting ended, Martinez looked around at her advisors. Are we really ready for this? Can we actually stand against the entire Galactic Council? Director Nakamura smiled for the first time that day. Madam President, the Council has been teaching us for 50 years. Every trade agreement, Every cultural exchange, every diplomatic meeting was a chance to learn their weaknesses. We know their fleet positions, their supply lines, their political divisions, and their military capabilities better than they do. They invited humanity to join galactic civilization, Admiral Chen added. They just never asked what kind of civilization we actually are. President Martinez nodded slowly. In less than 60 hours, humanity's answer would reach the council station. She had no doubt it would come as a complete shock. Outside the buried chamber, the sun was rising over the Alps. Soon, it would be rising over a very different galaxy, one where humanity would no longer pretend to be the junior partner in galactic affairs. The message to Ambassador Sarah was already being prepared. It would be brief, direct, and absolutely clear. The Council had asked for humanity's submission. They were about to discover they had been sharing the galaxy with apex predators. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked into the Council chamber 18 hours ahead of schedule. The alien representatives looked up in surprise as she took her place at the human delegation table. Most had expected her to use every minute of the 72-hour deadline, probably trying to negotiate some desperate compromise. Instead, she appeared calm and professional, carrying only a simple datapad and a small briefcase marked with Earth's diplomatic seal. "Honored Council members," Sarah said, standing to address the chamber, "I have received Earth's official response to your ultimatum." Zethkri's crystalline form brightened with anticipation. Admiral Korth leaned forward eagerly. Even the usually serene luminary representatives focused their energy fields more intently. "Humanity's answer is simple," Sarah continued. "We reject all terms of your ultimatum." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Several council members began speaking at once, their translation devices creating a chaos of overlapping voices. "Furthermore," Sarah said, raising her voice above the noise, "we have a counter-proposal that I believe you will find far more important than your current concerns." Zethkri restored order with a resonant chime that cut through all other sounds. "Ambassador Chen, you seem to misunderstand the situation. This was not a negotiation. It was a final demand." "I understand perfectly," Sarah replied. "You demanded our submission. We are declining. Instead, we wish to discuss a real threat to galactic security." She activated her datapad, and the chamber's holographic system responded. But instead of the usual diplomatic presentation, something impossible happened. The display filled with images from across the galaxy. Star systems the Council thought were empty, monitoring stations they had never seen, and installations built with technology they didn't recognize. "What is this?" demanded the Hive Queen. "These are humanity's deep space monitoring networks," Sarah explained calmly. "For the past 30 years, we have been watching the space beyond our galaxy's edge. 3 months ago, we detected something that should concern all of us far more than political disputes." The hologram shifted to show sensor readings that made several council members gasp. Energy signatures on a massive scale were approaching from extragalactic space. "A fleet," Sarah continued. "Thousands of ships, some larger than your biggest space stations. They will reach the galaxy's outer rim in approximately 50 years. Admiral Korth slammed his fist on his delegation table. "This is obviously fabricated. Desperate human lies to avoid the consequences of their violations." "I thought you might say that," Sarah replied. She opened her briefcase and removed a small device that looked like a crystalline flower. "This contains the complete sensor logs from our monitoring stations, verified by quantum encryption that cannot be faked. Any of your scientists can analyze the data." She placed the device on the chamber's central platform. "But there's something more important you should know. This isn't the first time this has happened." The hologram changed again, showing archaeological sites throughout the galaxy. Ancient ruins, dead worlds, and the remains of civilizations that had reached heights of technology the current council could barely imagine. Director Nakamura of our Xenological Research Division has been studying these sites for decades, Sarah explained. The pattern is always the same. A galactic civilization reaches its peak, then vanishes completely within a few hundred years. No survivors, no refugees, no trace of what happened to billions of beings. "These are natural disasters," protested the Botanical Collective's speaker. "Supernovas, stellar collapse, plague, any number of explanations." "That's what we thought too," Sarah agreed. "Until we found this." The hologram focused on a single archaeological site, a moon covered in crystalline structures that pulsed with faint energy. "This is in the Vega system. The ruins are 2 million years old, but some of the technology is still active. We've been studying it carefully. The image zoomed in to show inscriptions and pictographs carved into the crystal surfaces. They depicted massive ships descending from space, harvesting operations that stripped entire planets bare, and finally the exodus of the conquerors carrying their spoils to the void between galaxies. They come, they consume everything of value, they leave, Sarah said simply. And now they're coming back. The chamber fell silent. Even Admiral Korth seemed stunned by the implications. This is unprecedented, whispered the Luminari representative. If true, it changes everything. It is true, Sarah confirmed. And it gets worse. We believe they time their visits to coincide with peak galactic development. They wait for civilizations to reach maximum technological and biological diversity, then harvest everything at once. Zethkri's form dimmed. How could you know this when our own archaeologists have studied these sites for millennia? Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. Because humanity approaches problems differently than you do. While your scientists were trying to understand ancient cultures, ours were looking for patterns. We see the galaxy as a system, not a collection of individual civilizations. Even if this is true, Admiral Korth said, though his voice had lost its earlier confidence, what does this have to do with your violations of council law? Everything, Sarah replied. While you've been focused on maintaining the current balance of power, we've been preparing for a war you don't even know is coming. Those weapons you're so concerned about, the quantum cascade torpedoes, they're designed to fight ships the size of asteroids. The hologram shifted to show technical specifications that made the council members recoil in shock. The human weapons weren't just powerful. They were specifically engineered to combat the exact type of technology the ancient ruins suggested the approaching enemy possessed. Our expansion into disputed systems wasn't random aggression, Sarah continued. We've been establishing forward monitoring posts and defensive positions along the most likely approach routes. Every violation you've charged us with has been part of a strategic defense plan, 30 years in the making. You've been watching us, the Avari representative accused. Spying on our activities, studying our weaknesses? Yes, Sarah admitted without hesitation. Because we needed to understand whether you were allies or obstacles. Whether you were preparing for the real threat or just playing political games. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each representative. The answer, unfortunately, is that you've been playing games while an extinction-level threat approaches our galaxy. What do you propose we do about this? Zethkri asked. Form a real alliance, Sarah replied immediately. Combine our resources, our knowledge, our fleets. Share technology freely instead of hoarding it. Build defenses that can actually protect galactic civilization instead of just maintaining the current power structure. And if we refuse? Admiral Korth challenged. Sarah's expression hardened. Then humanity will fight this war alone. We've been preparing for 50 years. We have weapons, ships, and strategies the enemy won't expect. We might even win, but, the Hive Queen prompted. But it would be better for everyone if we fought together. The approaching force destroyed civilizations more advanced than any of us individually. Our only chance is to work as one unified defense. The chamber erupted in debate as council members argued among themselves. Some demanded proof, others called for immediate military action against humanity, and a few quietly began calculating the implications of everything they'd just learned. Through it all, Sarah Chen stood silently at her delegation table waiting. She had delivered Earth's message exactly as instructed. Now the council had to decide whether they were wise enough to accept reality or stubborn enough to ensure their own destruction. In the space around the council station, sensors that had been watching for decades continued their silent vigil. If the council chose war, humanity was ready. If they chose alliance, humanity was ready for that too. The galaxy's future hung in the balance of the next few hours. And for the first time in 2 million years, that future might include survival. The hours following Sarah Chen's revelation passed like a hurricane tearing through the carefully ordered world of galactic politics. Emergency sessions erupted throughout council space as the implications of humanity's counter-proposal spread from world to world. On the Vorthak homeworld, Zethkri stood before the Crystal Assembly, their governing body of living gemstone beings. The chamber resonated with harmonic frequencies that would have shattered human eardrums. But to the Vorthak, it was the sound of barely controlled panic. The humans claim to have been watching our every move for 50 years, Zethkri reported. They possess detailed intelligence on our military capabilities, our economic systems, our political structures. Everything we believed was secure has been compromised. The prime crystal, ancient beyond measure, pulsed with deep amber light. How is this possible? Our counterintelligence services detected nothing. Because we were looking for the wrong things, Zethkri admitted. We watched for spies and infiltrators. We never considered that they might be learning from our own open activities. Trade negotiations, cultural exchanges, scientific conferences. Every interaction was an intelligence-gathering opportunity. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On Draconis Prime, Admiral Korth faced his own military council in a chamber built from volcanic glass and decorated with the weapons of conquered enemies. "Sir," his intelligence chief reported, "we've confirmed the humans' claims about their monitoring networks. Our deep space patrols have located 14 installations in sectors we believed were empty. They've been watching our fleet movements for decades." Korth's scaled fist crashed down on the tactical display. "How many of our ships are currently under their observation?" The pause before the answer told him everything. "All of them, sir. Every major fleet, every patrol route, every supply convoy. They have real-time tracking of our entire military structure." But the true shockwave came when xenoarchaeological teams throughout the galaxy began emergency examinations of ancient sites. On world after world, teams that had studied ruins for centuries suddenly saw them with new eyes. Guided by humanity's disturbing interpretations, Dr. Veltar, the Botanical Collective's leading archaeologist, stood in the ruins of what had once been called the Paradise Gardens, a vast network of crystalline structures on a dead world in the Centaurus Arm. For 200 years, her people had believed this was a monument to an ancient ecological disaster. Now, with humanity's data overlaying her own research, the truth was horrifying. "These aren't memorial gardens," she transmitted to the collective's leadership. "They're processing facilities. The crystalline structures were designed to extract and preserve biological essences. This entire world was a harvesting operation." Similar revelations poured in from archaeological sites across the galaxy. What had been interpreted as art, monuments, or disaster remnants were revealed as the infrastructure of systematic consumption. The approaching force hadn't just destroyed previous civilizations, they had farmed them. On the council station, emergency sessions ran continuously as representative after representative demanded answers, reassurance, or immediate military action. But the most disturbing information came from the intelligence services themselves. Commander Thex of Council Intelligence stood before a hastily assembled security briefing, their insectoid form clicking nervously as they delivered their report. "We have attempted to verify the human claims about our security breaches. The results are comprehensive. The holographic display filled with evidence, communication intercepts showing human knowledge of classified military operations, trade records revealing they had been systematically acquiring samples of every council technology, even personal files on individual council members that contained information those members thought was private." "How extensive is the compromise?" asked the Luminary security chief. "Total," Thex replied simply. "They know our ship designs, our tactical doctrines, our supply lines, our political divisions, even our individual psychological profiles. The humans have been conducting the most successful intelligence operation in galactic history, and we never even suspected it was happening." But perhaps the most damaging revelation came from the economic sector. The human colonies that the Council had dismissed as minor trading partners were revealed to be the tip of an iceberg. Hidden facilities throughout human space had been producing goods and resources that the Council thought were impossible to obtain without their approval. "They don't need our trade," Finance Director Kex reported to the emergency economic session. "They've been self-sufficient for decades. The trading relationships we thought gave us leverage over them were actually giving them leverage over us. They understand our supply chains better than we do." As the scope of humanity's deception became clear, political alliances that had stood for centuries began to crack. Species that had trusted their neighbors for millennia suddenly questioned every shared secret, every joint operation, every collaborative effort. "If the humans could fool us this completely," demanded the Hive Queen during one particularly heated session, "how do we know we can trust each other?" The question hung in the air like poison. The Council had been built on mutual cooperation and shared information. If that foundation was compromised, what was left? Admiral Korth, meanwhile, faced a more immediate problem. His fleets were positioned around human systems, ready to enforce the Council's ultimatum. But intelligence now revealed that every one of his ships was being shadowed by undetected human vessels. "Sir," his tactical officer reported during an encrypted briefing, "long-range sensors have detected energy signatures consistent with cloaked ships maintaining parallel courses with our fleets. The signatures match theoretical projections for human stealth technology." Korth stared at the tactical display showing his proud armada. Each ship was represented by a blue icon indicating Council forces. But now, faint red shadows appeared alongside them. The estimated positions of human vessels that had been invisible until now. "How many?" he asked quietly. "Conservative estimate? They have us outnumbered 3-1. And sir, these aren't the primitive vessels we expected. Energy readings suggest they're equipped with weapon systems significantly more advanced than our current generation." The implications were staggering. The Council had positioned their fleets for what they thought would be an easy victory over a technologically inferior species. Instead, they had walked into a trap where the enemy held every advantage. But the final blow to Council confidence came from their own scientists. Teams throughout Council space had begun analyzing the data humanity had provided about the approaching extragalactic threat. The results were uniformly terrifying. "The human calculations are correct," reported Dr. Zenth, the Council's leading astrophysicist, during an emergency scientific briefing. "The approaching objects are artificial constructs moving at significant fractions of light speed. Based on observed deceleration patterns, they will begin entering our galaxy within 50 standard years." "Could this be coincidence?" asked a desperate Council member. "Perhaps the humans detected something unrelated and are misinterpreting the data." Dr. Zenth's response crushed that hope. "We have verified their findings using our own deep space monitoring networks. The signatures are consistent with massive technological constructs, and the approach vector suggests deliberate targeting of our galaxy's most densely populated regions." As reports continued to pour in from across Council space, a grim picture emerged. Humanity had not just been preparing for war with the Council. They had been preparing for a war the Council didn't even know was coming. Every violation of galactic law had been part of a strategic defense plan decades in the making. The species that the Council had dismissed as primitive newcomers had been playing a game so sophisticated and long-term that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations had never even realized they were participants. Now, with less than 24 hours remaining before humanity's ultimatum expired, the Council faced a choice that would determine the fate of every species in the galaxy: submit to human leadership in preparing for an existential threat, or maintain their pride and face extinction. In the depths of space, ancient monitoring stations continued their watch, recording the approach of something that had destroyed galaxies before, and would not hesitate to do so again. 6 months later, Admiral Lisa Chen stood on the bridge of the UGS Defiance, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. Through the massive viewports, she could see the combined fleet of the galaxy. Over 10,000 vessels from 13 different species, all flying in perfect formation toward the edge of known space. It had not been an easy path to this moment. The Council's final vote had taken place in emergency session, with representatives participating remotely from their homeworlds, while their fleets remained on high alert. The debate had raged for 18 hours, with species threatening to withdraw from the alliance, others demanding impossible guarantees, and a few quietly preparing for civil war. In the end, pragmatism had won by a single vote. The Luminari representative had cast the deciding ballot, their energy form flickering with exhaustion as they announced their decision. "We choose survival over pride," they had declared. "We choose cooperation over conquest. We choose to stand with humanity against the darkness between stars." The formal dissolution of the ultimatum had been signed within hours. In its place came the Galactic Defense Compact, an alliance that recognized humanity as an equal, partner in galactic affairs and established joint command structures for the coming war. But equality on paper was very different from equality in practice. The real changes had come gradually, as Council species began to understand just how thoroughly humanity had outmaneuvered them. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving confirmation from all fleet elements. The combined armada is fully operational and ready for deep space deployment. Lisa nodded, studying the tactical displays that showed the greatest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Human stealth ships flew alongside Vorthak crystal vessels. Draconic battlecruisers operated in formation with botanical bioships. Even the proud Avari had contributed their aerial combat specialist to the combined effort. "Status report from the research division?" she asked. Director Nakamura reports that all xenoarchaeological teams have completed their site surveys, replied her science officer. The pattern is consistent across 47 different locations. Previous galactic civilizations were systematically harvested, with particular emphasis on genetic material and advanced technology. The investigation of ancient ruins had revealed the full scope of what humanity faced. The approaching enemy, now designated the Harvesters, had perfected the art of galactic consumption over millions of years. They would arrive, catalog every species and technology, then systematically strip away everything of value before moving on to the next galaxy. But this time would be different. This time they faced a galaxy that was unified and prepared. "Admiral Chen," came a voice from the communications array. She recognized Admiral Korth's gravelly tone, though it now carried a grudging respect that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. "Admiral Korth," she replied, "are your battle groups ready for the next phase?" "All draconic forces are at full readiness. I still think this plan is insane, but I admit your species has a talent for impossible victories." The plan was indeed audacious. Rather than wait for the Harvesters to arrive and establish themselves, the combined fleet would meet them at the galaxy's edge. Using humanity's dimensional, folding technology, finally revealed to their allies, they would strike the enemy while they were still vulnerable from their long journey between galaxies. "Incoming transmission from the Vorthak. Contingent," reported the communications officer. Zeth Kree's crystalline form appeared on the main screen, his surface reflecting the lights of his flagship's bridge. "Ambassador Chen sends her regards from the diplomatic mission to the outer colonies. All civilian populations have been successfully evacuated from the outer rim territories." "Excellent," Lisa replied. "And the monitoring stations?" "All 47 deep space observation posts are fully operational and providing real-time intelligence on the approaching force." "Your people have built remarkable technology, Admiral." It was true. The monitoring networks that had been hidden for decades were now revealed to be far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. They provided detailed information about the Harvester fleet's composition, speed, and tactical formations. For the first time in galactic history, the defenders would know exactly what they were facing. "Admiral," her tactical officer called out, "we're receiving priority signals from Monitor Station Alpha. The leading elements of the Harvester fleet have begun deceleration. They'll reach the outer rim in 6 hours." The bridge fell silent. After months of preparation, the moment had finally arrived. "Signal all ships," Lisa commanded. "Begin final approach to combat positions. Activate all stealth systems. Today we find out whether the galaxy can defend itself." Throughout the combined fleet, similar scenes played out on bridges representing the diversity of galactic civilization, but there was a unity of purpose that had never existed before. The political divisions, territorial disputes, and ancient rivalries had been set aside in the face of an existential threat. "Admiral, we're receiving a message from Earth," reported the communications officer. President Martinez appeared on a secondary screen, broadcasting from the World Defense Council chamber deep beneath the Alps. "Admiral Chen, you have the full support of humanity and our allies. Show them that this galaxy belongs to us." "Understood, Madam President. We won't let you down." As the fleet moved into its final positions, Lisa reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, humanity had been seen as an upstart species that needed to learn its place. Now they were the senior partners in an alliance that represented the galaxy's only hope for survival. "Contact from the Hive Queen," announced the communications officer. The insectoid leader's image appeared, her mandibles clicking with determination. "Admiral Chen, my swarm fleets are in position. We pledge our lives to galactic defense. May the Harvesters learn to fear the unity they created by threatening us." Similar messages poured in from across the Allied fleet. The Botanical Collective's living ships pulsed with bioluminescent determination. The Luminari focused their energy fields into weapons of unprecedented power. Even species that had been enemies for centuries now fought side by side. "Sensor contact," called out the tactical officer. Harvester fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Distance 1,000,000 kilometers and closing. On the main display, the enemy appeared. Thousands of massive vessels, some large enough to house entire cities, others sleek and predatory like mechanical sharks. They moved with the precision of a force that had conquered galaxies and expected no real resistance. They were about to discover their mistake. "All ships. This is Admiral Chen," Lisa broadcast to the combined fleet. "For 2,000,000 years, these creatures have preyed upon galactic civilization. They have harvested worlds, enslaved species, and treated the galaxy as their personal feeding ground. Today, that ends." She paused, looking out at the greatest assembly of military might in galactic history. "They expect us to be divided, afraid, and unprepared. Instead, they find us united, determined, and ready for war. Show them that this galaxy has learned to fight back." The response came from 10,000 ships at once. Human vessels decloaked around harvester formations. Council battleships opened fire with weapons upgraded using human technology. The combined fleet struck with a coordination that the enemy had never faced before. The Battle of the Outer Rim had begun. And for the first time in 2,000,000 years, the harvesters discovered they were not the apex predators they believed themselves to be. The galaxy had found its defenders, and they were absolutely relentless. In the depths of space, ancient monitoring stations recorded everything, preserving the moment when galactic civilization chose to stand and fight rather than submit and die. It was the beginning of a new age, one where the unity forged in desperation would reshape the galaxy forever. The Council had tried to blackmail humanity. Instead, they had discovered their salvation.